Look, the truth is that it hasn't really been a good few weeks for AEW after all the fiascos and Tony Khan defending stuff that he did and all that. But tonight was AEW Dynasty, and there's one thing that AEW always gets right. Almost always, and that is pay-per-views. AEW's television has a lot of problems. The booking has some issues, but the pay-per-views themselves always deliver. And AEW Dynasty 2024, the first annual one, was the same. All the matches that we knew going in were going to be classics or at least very, very good wound up being very, very good. It was a showcase of the incredible talent roster that AEW has, and that's one thing that Tony Khan should be credited for, even though I'm sure many of us would have made similar choices, at least with some of the talent that he got, is the fact that he was able to get these talent under one roof and get them to have matches. Obviously, he's paying them, but it's still, it makes you wonder if there was no AEW. Like, if the AEW never existed, would Will Ospreay ever have left New Japan? Like, I think he would have stayed over there. I really do. So we do have to be, happy that AEW exists. I just want it to get better. But the thing that they always get right is the pay-per-view. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on AEW Dynasty. So I did see the pre-show, and the booking was a little weird here because they started off with Trent Beretta and Matt Sydal, right? It was a pretty decent, like basically a collision match. And Trent Beretta had just turned heel recently, a couple weeks ago. And I was wondering when he turned heel on Orange Cassidy if they were going to just do that match at Dynasty. But instead they put Orange Cassidy in a tag team with Shibata against Shane Taylor Promotions. So I thought that was a little bit strange. I'm guessing that Tony Khan's probably going to hold off on the Orange Cassidy match with Trent probably for the next pay-per-view for Double or Nothing. That could be what he was thinking. It's just a little weird they were both on the same card and not against each other. But at the same time, there was already another match on this card involving like stablemates turning on each other or friends turning on each other. So if you have two storylines going into a pay-per-view that are too similar, sometimes it's not a good idea to do them so close to each other. You know what I mean? Like Chad Gable's heel turn on Raw, like that was a great heel turn. Any other heel turns that are coming down the pipeline, you don't want to do them too soon. You want to take it easy and wait a little bit. That way some time passes. You don't want to have turns every week. You know what I mean? And so I understand if maybe they didn't want it to be too similar, but I still was wondering about that. But both matches were pretty much just basic TV matches. Then we had Switchblade Jay White and the Guns against the Acclaimed and Daddy Ass for the unification of the AEW and ROH trios titles. Now, I'm happy about this because AEW, with or without Ring of Honor, has too many titles. WWE has a lot of titles too, I'm not going to lie. But I feel like AEW has too many titles for how they present their television. I think AEW should kind of make each title a bit more meaningful rather than just having more titles. And I think this is a good step. Unify these two titles because you don't really need ROH Trios champions. You only need one set of titles that are Trios titles. But this match was okay. It wasn't the best. There were some parts of the match that I thought were a little bit sloppy. But, they tried. A lot of this match was just mostly, just okay. Just average stuff. Now, the highlight is the pre-match rap from Platinum Max Caster. He went a cappella mode and was really dropping some bombs on his rap. And also, I want to say that I really love the presentation of Bullet Club Gold. When they walk out to the ramp, and it's Jay White and the two gun guys, and the camera's panning around them. That's the most professional superstar entrance, I think, in the company. Like, I really feel that way. I think that's one of the coolest camera shots that they've done. Not even WWE, who is usually way ahead of the curve when it comes to production, at least, has done that shot quite like that. And the way they have the lights kind of beaming up from the bottom, great work from AEW's production crew, man. They are very underrated when it comes to these things. So then the pay-per-view began, and they had a really awesome video package to open the pay-per-view, and I was happy to see it. Like, AEW's production, I feel like, is getting better. The video package tonight was really well done and told a really powerful message, and it made the pay-per-view seem big time. This show was from St. Louis and had a little under 7,000 fans. And honestly, man, it was such a good pay-per-view, and it's a bummer it was only that many fans. Like, I really do wish that AEW was a hotter promotion right now, because these matches, I mean, the crowd was hot throughout most of the show. They were a great crowd. But imagine if it was this same crowd with like 15,000 people. Oh my God, because let me tell you, the crowd was into almost everything. I mean, it was really, they were in. So we opened the show with the Okada Pac match. Now, along with the Ospreay Bryan match, those were the two most anticipated matches. And I was wondering, okay, they opened the show with Okada. Now, that's interesting, because it's smart for them to open the show with a good wrestling match. It kind of reminds me of how WrestleMania Night 2 had Seth and Drew for the world title. You can do that sometimes. I think that's fair to open with a big match if you want. And they delivered. I mean, this was a hell of a match. It was everything you wanted it to be. I mean, that's the best review. But one thing I will tell you, and I'm going to get into a little bit more about how much I love Okada here. I was thinking, this is the first time in at least 15 years that Okada has opened up a show. Like, think back to his New Japan career, because I was thinking back, all the matches, and he's been at the top of the card or in the middle of the card. But I don't think Okada has opened a show, like been the first match, the curtain jerker, in 15 years. It has to be something like that. I don't have that data definitively. It might be 16, it might be 14, but it's right around that time. Phenomenal match, and I want to say I love Okada's heel work. This is what the original Rainmaker gimmick was back when he first was trying to overthrow Tanahashi in that great feud. That's what Okada was, this cocky upstart, all about the money, very arrogant, knows that he's the shit. You know what I mean? He's so good at playing that character. And I love seeing him work heel, because he still does a lot of the same moves that he did as a babyface. Even the drop kick, his big, which he did do in this match, he still does it, right? But he's also a bit more of a brawler, throwing people around. Like, he's a bit more like, just feels more aggressive as a heel, and also arrogant. And I think he plays it really well. What a great match, dude. I mean, this was crazy, bro. The two air raid crashes, and they kept switching reversals. Like, it was phenomenal, yo. The Rainmaker got him the win, and they both got a standing ovation. It was a phenomenal match. House of Black versus Adam Copeland, the TNT champion, the strong openweight champion Eddie Kingston, and the ROH champion Mark Briscoe. See how there's a lot of guys with belts? But I went into this match not really being too interested. Most of this buildup was on Collision, and I don't watch Collision most weeks. I watch it once in a while, and so I didn't see much of the buildup. But I love the House of Black. I love those guys. I love their characters. I love their how they work together. They're great. And individually, I love Edge. I love Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe. So, everybody here is a wrestler that I like. But I was wondering how the match was going to be. It did start off slow, but man, did it pick up. This match way over exceeded my expectations, dude. I mean, I went into it thinking, okay, well, it'll be fine. Dude, this was an excellent match. I mean, an excellent match. And with the finish, where Malachi Black hit Adam Copeland with the end spin kick and got the 1, 2, 3. That tells me, if you want to go logical booking, we'll see if Tony can do this. That tells me that TNT champion Edge may have to defend that title against Malachi Black, maybe at the next pay-per-view in a one-on-one match. And you know what? That's an exciting feud right there. They got the six way out of the way, and then we have Edge going back into the dark side. Remember, folks, and AEW, if they book it right, could be great. Remember, Edge started with the Brood, Well, he didn't start with them technically, but he was there early in his career. So he's already done that whole like gothic stable thing. And the House of Black kind of feel like a modern day reinvention of the Brood in some ways. I mean, there's elements of different characters there. But I think it could be great. I think it could be a lot of fun, and it gives AEW a chance to be creative. Willow Nightingale and Julia Hart, I mean, I knew it was inevitable. Like, I knew Willow was going to win. Because, I mean, everybody knew because it was the right time. And then they showed her family in the front row, and that's when you know for sure it's going to be that case. And she's already going to be having her match with Sasha Banks, Mercedes Moné at Double or Nothing. Because remember, the last match Sasha had in Japan as Mercedes Moné before she got injured was with Willow Nightingale. So they have kind of unfinished business. I think Sasha Banks is going to pull a Hulk Hogan and win the TBS title her first match in. And it'll be over Willow. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it makes the most sense. And I think as she won, now somebody DM'd me and told me that somebody who would know told me that Julia Hart was injured and they had to go home early. The match was short. It was definitely short, ended a little bit abrupt. So it didn't look like an injury, but you can't tell sometimes. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the Bryan stuff. But with Julia Hart, that's what I was told. And maybe the match was supposed to go longer. Either way, it wasn't. This is not one of those matches that needed to be a great match. It was fine for what it was. The purpose of it was to put the title on Willow. That's what the purpose of it was, and they did it. Roderick Strong, Kyle O'Reilly for the international title. This was crazy. So Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick have had this very fast build-up that I think this goes back to my criticism of the booking. This feud between Roddy and Kyle O'Reilly and the match should have had a much longer build and a much longer tease. Like, it felt like Kyle O'Reilly just came back like very recently, and already this happened. I would have liked it more if maybe he worked with Roddy a little bit before, like, or, had more of a build-up, more of a tease. Maybe they have like a respect match or something, and then, Roderick can turn heel on him officially, or, turn on him, make him think he's going to be on his side. There's lots of ways to do it. The build-up to this, in my opinion, was flat. However, the match was absolutely excellent. Another match that, this show, AEW Dynasty, might end up being the best AEW pay-per-view as far as match quality goes. It really might. Like, if you're talking about which AEW show had the most good matches, there's a lot out there, including All Out 2021 and Revolution 2022. I mean, even Double or Nothing, the first one was like, had all great matches, right? That's AEW is good at that, right? This is another match. This match, you had all kinds of crazy reversals. You had backbreakers. You had martial arts kicks. I forgot how much I loved Kyle O'Reilly, man. He might not be super charismatic on the mic, man, but in ring, he's phenomenal. Just this reminded me, I mean, they're both guys from the black and gold era of NXT, and this reminded me of something you would see on a TakeOver. You got to remember, the Undisputed Era would try to steal the show every time. So it just makes logical sense. Chris Jericho and Hook. This is another... Actually, before we get to that, there's something more important before we get to Chris Jericho and Hook. I was going to say it's another friend turning on somebody story, but it was done differently. Not that it's the same thing, but Jericho and Hook was... the build-up was way too fast. Again, this would have benefited from a slower build-up and you do the match later. I do feel like this build-up was way too fast. Jericho goes from wanting the team with Hook to all of a sudden being this cocky teacher, and now they're having a match. Like, they cram like 4 months of storylines into like 1 month, is what I'm trying to tell you. But what I was gonna say was, after Roderick Strong defeated Kyle O'Reilly, we'll get to the Jericho match in a minute. After he won, Adam Cole came out and he stepped off the wheelchair. So that means that Adam Cole is healed. And because Adam Cole is now officially back, which, by the way, he gave Wardlow a really weird stare. At one point, he glared at him. And I feel like that's going to lead to something. I feel like they're going to eventually flip on Wardlow. Obviously, the long-term plan is MJF's going to come back and feud with him. I know a lot of people seem to think that MJF is going to WWE. I don't believe that's happening. I think he re-signed with AEW and didn't tell anybody because I think them taking him off the roster page, I think that was all done on purpose. I think he's coming back. They have to blow off that, Adam Cole thing, and they probably will. But now that Cole is back, maybe they're going to do the Wardlow feud in the meantime because it does feel like they're going to turn on Wardlow at some point. Maybe we'll get Wardlow and Kyle O'Reilly as a unit against, the Undisputed Kingdom. Lots of stuff they can do here. We'll see if they can do it. Tony Khan just needs to take his time with things and, again, learn how to tell a longer-term story. That way these matches mean that much more. Chris Jericho and Hook. Man, the crowd hated Chris Jericho, dude. Like, I've never heard this kind of reception. Now, I want to say this. While I've been a fan of Chris Jericho all my life, pretty much, since the mid-90s, I will say that I do understand why the crowd treated him like this. Regardless of whether or not you believe what Nick Hausman said about these allegations that Chris Jericho may have done some for Harvey Weinstein shit, I don't know if that's true or not. So I don't think it's fair to point the finger at him because it could just be a lie or, you know what I mean? We don't have any evidence, right? And no other witnesses. So I don't know if it's true. But also, putting that aside, Jericho is TV old for AEW. I think he's been on TV way too much. He hasn't been involved in anything interesting in maybe a year or two. Like, because his last few things he was involved in, like the Kenny and Jericho team, I don't think had enough time to really shape itself. And Jericho's feuds last year were a bit underwhelming overall. You know what I mean? And it wasn't that, it's weird because I don't know if there's anybody to blame for that. Things just didn't work out. But I do think Jericho needs time off. Like, now I'm thinking Jericho might want to take off, like, maybe 6 months. Or maybe just until All In. I don't know, but he needs to take some time off. This match, however, was great. This was definitely, a lot of ECW inspiration. Obviously, Hook is like AEW's Taz. That's the whole point. Jericho did have a match with Taz back in '95 in ECW, I believe. So, I mean, there's history there, but I still think that the build-up was rushed, but the match was great. They had some gore. They were doing some crazy bumps here and there. They did an awesome thing where Hook put a trash can over Jericho's entire body and suplexed it. That was pretty cool, yo. Like, that was a really clever spot. So, the finish of the match, right? Well, first, Jericho hit Hook with 2 Judas effects, and he kept kicking out. So the story here is that Hook is unbeatable. Like, they're trying to make him tough like Taz. The problem with that is that so many wrestlers do this. Like, so many wrestlers kick out of finishers nowadays that it doesn't have the same meaning. And I know that it can make the match feel more epic, but it would mean so much more if Hook was the only guy doing this. But it still was effective in telling that story. Jericho ends up winning because he hits Hook with the bat in the face. Obviously, I looked real close. He didn't actually hit him at full force, but he hit him in the face with a baseball bat and got the 1, 2, 3. That got a huge pop, by the way, the bat. That was, people were like shocked. And it looked like Hook might have been hurt from this, like injured. Not legitimately, but like in storyline. Jericho just took his title. Obviously, this will build up to Hook getting it back, but I think Jericho, when he drops that title to Hook, should take a little bit of time off. I'm not saying to get rid of him fully because, like I said, we don't know if any of those allegations are true. And there's no evidence, but just for his sake, I'd take him off. I'd give him a break for a few months. Tony Storm, Thunder Rosa. This match was very, very good. Again, better than I was expecting. I knew it was going to be a good match because Thunder Rosa and Tony Storm are good workers. Like, I mean, I knew that. But it was actually, this is one of those matches that I think over-exceeded expectations. I think is kind of the real measuring stick of this pay-per-view. I think this pay-per-view is elevating AEW pay-per-views now because You could make the argument that this was the best pay-per-view of all time AEW's done as far as match quality. It might not be as historic as All Out 2021, right? Or Double or Nothing 2019. It might not be that historic, right? As far as importance, I don't know, but it certainly feels like all night there was nothing but good matches, and they were all different. They were all different. And that to me really stands out because it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that, you know. Will Ospreay, Bryan Danielson. I don't even know what to say about this. This is one of the greatest matches I would say ever in wrestling, and I've seen a lot of them, let me tell you, and I'm not one of those like guys that only thinks that Japanese wrestling is the best. Like I watch stuff from everywhere, right? And I've been watching this most of my life since the early 80s, and I watch a lot of wrestling, dude. Trust me, I do. Like hours I'll watch this. So when I say it's one of the best matches ever, it's up against a huge library of matches. I've seen some people say it was the best match in the history of North America. I think Brian Alvarez said that. Don't know about that one. I think some time has to go by, but my God, this was everything you could ever want out of a wrestling match. The crowd was hot for the entire thing. I mean, they were chanting nonstop the entire match. The crowd deserves a standing ovation themselves in St. Louis because they really helped this show. They were a big deal as to what made this show feel so good. And it was great. And oh my God, this match. They told a story here. There was a story that these guys told that was the embodiment of fighting spirit, the embodiment of pride, the embodiment of just manhood in a way, masculinity, as far as like being a go-getter, you know what I mean? As far as like being a winner. These two guys in kayfabe wanted to prove to each other that they were the best. And Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson, the men who play the characters, did everything in their power to make us believe, and they succeeded in doing it. This is one of those matches where when you watch it, you get lost. It's not that you forget that it's a work. You don't automatically think wrestling is real. But it's no different than if you're watching a kung fu movie or if you're watching a superhero movie. You know that Henry Cavill's not really punching Steppenwolf. Steppenwolf isn't even there. It's a CGI character, and Henry Cavill's on some like wires. You know what I'm saying? But when you watch in the movie, that's not what happens. Your brain interprets it as Superman punching Steppenwolf. That's what this match does. It immerses you in it. Will Ospreay has to be. There's got to be something up with this guy. I don't know if he's got anti-gravity boots. There were moves that he did here that, like, he did a corkscrew plancha and then flipped in midair and it landed on his feet, dog. This is like shit you see in Power Rangers, homie. This is shit that you see in Power Rangers, dog. I'm starting to wonder if Will Ospreay knows fucking Zordon, bro. That's what I want to know. Because this dude, it's almost like this man's gifted. You understand what I'm saying? He's gifted. And I really hope that he didn't blow his chances to go to WWE someday because he does deserve to have at least one WrestleMania. You can say what you want about WWE or AEW. It's not about that. As a pro wrestler, he's so good, he really deserves it. Because he's that good. Because he's so talented. This match right here should have been in front of 20,000 people. But it was in front of 6,000. But man, they were great. They were a tremendous audience. I don't know what to even tell you about the moves. But they did everything. Flying kicks. We saw a dragon suplex from the top rope. We saw Danielson bust out everything from the cattle mutilation to the flying knee. We saw at one point in the match, the best moment of the match, Bryan and Ospreay are on opposite corners and they're both about to hit their flying moves. Who's going to hit first? Ospreay hit the flying elbow first. And it was like, this was like something out of like Star Wars or something. This is like something out of Dragon Ball Z when two guys clashed, you know, with the beam struggle. This was the pro wrestling version of that. What a fucking match, dude. I wouldn't be surprised if Meltzer gives it 7 stars. I really wouldn't. It's got to be at least 6 3/4 by his scale. For my scale, it was a perfect match. Now, at the end of the match, Will hit him with the Tiger Driver 91, and it looked like Danielson had injured something. However, I think he was just selling, right? But after the match ended, when the EMTs went in the ring, I started to wonder. I was like, wait a minute, did he really hurt himself? Because I'm thinking about, like, remember how he had to retire for a few years, and came back in 2018 because he had the brain problems. You know what I mean? Like, remember, this dude has already retired once due to head injuries. So for him to take the Tiger Driver 91, like, why would you take that risk? And I guess it's because he wants to make this match be like one of his greatest matches. And it is. This is one of Bryan Danielson's best matches. I don't know how it can be topped at any point this year by anyone. And even though the last two matches coming up were still great, I was wondering how they were going to be able to top this. And they didn't, but they were still great enough. Go out of your way to watch this match. I don't care if you hate AEW. I don't care if you love WWE. It's not about that. It's not about any of that. If you did not order this show, I understand. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not saying to pirate the show, but at least find a way to see this match. You understand what I'm saying? Find a way to see it, whether you have to pay for it or not. If you can't afford it, find a way to see it, because it's just another level, bro. All right, let me move on. I love this match. Young Bucks versus FTR in a ladder match. This was it was not like their other matches. They really went out there and tried to kill themselves. I mean, some of the stunts in this match with the ladders and the tables they looked very dangerous. Like, obviously WWE and AEW both have done TLC type of matches all the time. I mean, we saw one at WrestleMania just, a couple weeks ago, right? And it's just something we always see. But this match felt especially brutal. There was one part where it looked like Matt Jackson, because he went from, like, in the ring to the outside through a table, but it looked like he may have hit his head and his neck on the guardrail hard. I mean, it looked nasty. Almost scary. You know what I mean? Dax was covered in blood. It was another classic. I mean, these two teams have had just unbelievable matches. You know what I mean? Everywhere they go. The crowd was chanting, "Please be careful," which I've never heard ever at a wrestling show. They were chanting, "Please be careful." I think part of this crowd was worn out from the previous match. And I don't think the angle worked, but the angle was exactly what we thought it was going to be. Jungle Boy made his return. He came out in a Sting mask and helped the Young Bucks climb the ladder to get the tag belt. So we all knew it was coming. It's no surprise. Jack Perry's back as a heel in the Young Bucks' crew with Okada. So they're going to form a little stable here, and maybe we'll get, maybe that'll be Blood and Guts this year. Maybe that'll be their War Games later on this year. Like, it could be that. I have no comment about Jack Perry. I've never disliked the guy, and I don't think he's going to get the kind of heat that Tony thinks he's going to get, but he did get a very big reaction on this show. So that's worth something, at least for now. I think we're going to have to wait a few weeks and see how he is. Like, let's see how they use Jack Perry, because I'm curious. So the main event, AEW World Title, Samoa Joe, Shane Swerve Strickland. Or Isaiah Swerve Scott, if you're talking about NXT names. This was phenomenal. This match was kind of a little bit of everything. We had brawling. We had great reversals. They told a story. Samoa Joe being the monster that Strickland had to overcome. They basically told the story that Strickland had to hit Joe with everything to beat him. And it was almost, it wasn't quite David versus Goliath. I don't want to say it was that. That wasn't really the story, because Swerve was a badass throughout the whole match. It was somewhat like the Ospreay Bryan match, where the story of the match was they were both trying to basically destroy the other one. It wasn't really about who's the better wrestler. Because Ospreay and Danielson's match, they started with that idea, but it ended a totally different way. It was just brutal by the end. And whether Bryan's injured or not, like, when the EMTs went in there, it did look a little bit scary, but it could be a work. They could be taking this whole, like, Bryan keeps getting injured stuff as part of the reason why he retires. I don't know. But I'm just going to say this. If Bryan really is injured, I think this is it. I care about that guy. He's been my favorite wrestler for many years. If he gets injured one more time, dude, he's already got a bad eye and a bad shoulder. And if he gets hurt one more time, bro, call it a career, dude. Like, it's a curse almost. I hate to say it, but it is. It feels like that. It definitely feels like that. But anyway, Swerve and Joe, man. Swerve kicked out of the Muscle Buster, which was kind of I don't think I remember. I think the only guy to kick out of that recently was Punk, right? I think Punk kicked out of it. I could be wrong. But the Muscle Buster is well protected. Oh, that reminds me. During the opening match, Pac and Okada hit like a float over DDT to the floor, and it was fucking nasty, and it was a 2 count. And I was thinking about how way back in the day in the 80s, Jake the Snake Roberts hit Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with a DDT on the outside on the floor and cracked his head, and Steamboat had a concussion, and they shot this storyline where Steamboat was out for weeks because of the concussion, trying to show us how scary that damn DDT was. And now in modern wrestling, it's a 2 count. Back then, DDTs and pile drivers meant you were gone for at least 6 months. Now in modern wrestling, it's a 2 count. It's just, the old timers hate it, bro. And it's like, I think this is just the way things are going to go. But the match with Joe and Swerve, I mean, phenomenal. And I was wondering what they were going to do, because here's the thing. I'm happy Swerve won. I think he's earned it. I think he's a great talent, great talker, great wrestler. The match felt good. When he won, they had like the pyro, and they had like the confetti. Like, it was like the coronation. But I really don't want him to lose to Ospreay at All In, man. Like, people are saying Ospreay's going to win the title at All In, and I don't think that's a good idea. I think if he's going to win the title at All In Wembley, it should be next year, because I don't want Swerve to have like a 4-month title reign, man. Like, it might even be bad optics, because some people, like, if Swerve won the title, right? If he loses to Ospreay within 4 months, there's going to be people that are going to frame it like AEW took the Black Man's title away. And trust me, they will do that, because I see that all the time on Twitter. Like, I see situations where people make like a racial thing out of anything. So in order to like prevent optics, as well as to give Swerve a nice title reign, I think they should do Ospreay against Omega or Okada at All In, and then do Strickland against somebody else. You understand what I'm saying? Maybe Hangman, maybe MJF if he's ready in time. Like, you want to do something else, because I just feel like you don't want to give Strickland a short title reign, dude. I'm not saying he has to go 3 years like Roman Reigns. I'm not saying that. But at least like 9 months. I think he needs to have his first reign be strong. I really do feel that way. And even though Ospreay is going to make a great world champion, right now you don't need him to be champion, because he's already the most over guy in the company, and he's an attraction. He's already main event status. Swerve just got there. Ospreay's been main eventing Japan for years, even when Swerve was in NXT. Ospreay has been in the main event, so to have him take it away from Swerve too soon is a mistake. I think Swerve should have it. I think they should have a match at some point. Maybe not at All In, but they should have one. Maybe in Tacoma, Washington. That's where Swerve is from. That's another reason why I don't think he should lose the belt, because they have a pay-per-view coming up in Tacoma in October, Wrestle Dream. You would think he'd be the champion for that show. I don't know. I mean, but the match was great. Great celebration. Really, really good pay-per-view. I have very, very, very few cons to say about this pay-per-view, pun intended. There was nothing I really disliked, man. It was a bit long, as AEW shows tend to be. And maybe they should shave some matches or build them up longer. Like Roderick and Kyle O'Reilly could have had this same match at Double or Nothing with an extra month of build up. You know, they should kind of space these out a little tiny bit, I think. You know, only my opinion on that. Some people like the pacing they have going right now, but it's a lot, you know. But the point of this all is that the AEW talent roster is out of this world because this show by itself, dude, again, for my reviews, there were a lot of matches that are in the 4 and 5 star range. You understand? Like from my, not Melter, from me, like Melter might give it a 7. For me, like if I go 1 through 5, like Ospreay and Danielson's a 5. Pac and Okada's got to be at least 4.5, right? Like at least, maybe even 5. You could make the argument if you saw some of the crazy shit that Pac did. But anyways, this was, look, it doesn't matter. This was a great show. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way to see it. It really was phenomenal. And bell to bell, it's going to be hard to top.